Good evening. Tonight is Thursday, April 12th, and we are in the Berlin room at Olentangy Administrative Offices. First order of business, I'd like to call the roll to order. Actually, I just did that. Ms. Hatfield, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Mr. Bartz?
Here.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Here.
Mr. King?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien?
Here.
And Mrs. Patrick?
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please have a seat. I will now take a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll, the vote.
Mrs. Fiesel?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mr. King?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
And Mrs. Patrick?
Yes. We'll start off the evening with a presentation from Robin Starcher, a media specialist at Olentangy Orange High School. Welcome.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. I'm Robin Starcher, the Library Media Specialist at Orange High School, but I'm actually here tonight as the K-12 Department Chair for our Library Media program. The reason I requested to speak to you tonight was twofold. I wanted to highlight all the great things that are happening in our media centers, but also I wanted to thank you, the Board of Education, as well as our district administrators for your continued support of our library media programs, especially by ensuring that we have a licensed library media specialist in every one of our schools. You might not know this, but our district is seen as a leader and is the envy of many media specialists around the area, especially here in Central Ohio, because of the continued value our district has continued to place on our library. So we thank you for that. As Ohio and our district move forward with future-ready initiatives, we feel as a department that our work is going to continue to be more and more important. We're really proud of the learning opportunities we've been able to provide the students of Olentangy and the support we can give to our outstanding teachers. We're especially proud of the areas of professional learning, collaborative leadership, and instructional practice, which are all part of the Future Ready framework. Little synopsis of who we are. There are 23 licensed library media specialists in the district with an average of 12 years of experience, and 70% of us have more than 10 years experience. We serve on building leadership teams as OPDA presenters and facilitators. We've held positions within education and library organizations outside of Olentangy, and many members of our department have also been selected as Educators of the Year in their buildings. A library media education preparation program includes coursework that focuses on media literacy, instruction, media center management, collection development, and instructional technology. We use this expertise every day to serve the students and staff in our schools. And I can assure you that the media centers that we have in our district now are not the school libraries that many of us remember from our school days. The primary focus of what we do is instruction. And I wanted to tell the story of the things we do through some images of our media centers versus a list of items. And from teaching the basic library skills to our youngest patrons to engaging our upperclassmen with college-level resources and research, your district media specialists are creating lesson plans, writing assessments. We're helping students learn how to locate credible sources, find quality evidence, and write effective questions. We teach students how to use technology to communicate and to find and produce information. These lessons occur in the library, but we're often out in classrooms or facilitating online learning. And most of the time, our lessons are in collaboration with classroom teachers. A lot of our lessons and activities focus on critical thinking. Several of our media centers are using maker spaces to provide students experience with building things using technology, creating robotics products, coding, or even old school paper and pencil and glue projects. No matter the medium that they're using, though, all of these projects involve creativity. Some of us have used escape room formatted lessons that require students to collaborate using clues to solve problems. Special programming is also an important part of the media centers, and we try to plan these programs to meet the needs and interests of our school populations. We have yearly author visits that allow students to interact with writers of books that they've read. We've had special events such as Therapeutic Thursdays, so students can unwind. And we've led focused discussions on topics such as diversity and time management. We've also had several guest speakers that have spoken to our students about everything from zoo animals to cyber safety. But I want you to know, despite all the research lessons, the maker spaces, and the technology, our media centers still value and promote a fundamental love of reading. Books have not gone away. Books are part of our everyday work through displays, book talks, book tastings, traveling collections, and book fairs. Our media specialists are providing and recommending a variety of fiction and nonfiction texts to our students every day. I'm very proud to be a part of this department. I want to thank the members of my department that came here tonight. We're a department that's embedded in student learning opportunities, and we consist of media specialists that are dedicated to helping our students build skills for success, follow their curiosities, and develop a desire to be lifelong learners. As a department, we establish a community of learners, readers, thinkers, and problem solvers, and we're a department that recognizes the importance of having a safe and welcoming space for our students to gather, imagine, and explore. I'm also very grateful, and I know my department is very grateful, to work in a district that supports all of these visions and goals that we have. So thank you for that support, and thank you for your time this evening.
Ask your members, our other library
Yeah,
people to
stand up,
stand
please.
so we can see them.
So Robin, I have
Thank
a
you.
question for you.
Sure.
So you said when you started your comments that we are the envy of many other schools here.
Yes, we are.
So what else do you need? What other resources do you need? And how do you look at staying on that edge to be the leader? What else do you need?
I think in terms of physical resources or just...
You tell me.
Okay.
Is it something that Mr. Rafe's going to cringe when we want to spend more money, or is it
No,
something
I
about
don't
personnel or
think-
programs or how you deliver to how
I
you
think you'll
help
be
the
happy
kids?
to know that it's not, for me, it's not about money. It's about the quality time that we get with kids. So I think collaboration with teachers, I think anything that can be done to encourage teachers to see us as a human resource, not just someone that can help you find a book on what you need, but can help you guide students through research, through technology use, really whatever the classroom need is. If we can't do it or help you do it, we know who can. And I find myself sitting and trying to figure out things sometimes just so I can help a teacher. So I really think in order to maintain the leadership role we have in the field is really just continued work with staff and increasing that work. And I don't think it's about physical resources or dollars.
Good answer, thanks.
And when she did say that we're the envy, it immediately brought to mind my sister teaches in Pickerington, and when they failed a levy, they cut the librarians, and so aides and volunteers were then brought in to run the library. And I don't want to see that happen at Olentangy, but do you know off the top of your head, like, in the state, how many school districts still have, or even maybe don't have, fully staffed libraries?
We do not. I actually attempted to get those statistics for my presentation this evening, and the challenge with that is some districts identify someone as a library media specialist even though they don't have
The
the
credentials.
license. So the only stats that they said they could provide were the number of active licenses in library media in the state, but that doesn't necessarily
Yeah.
mean that those people are employed. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're not all, I mean, you look, 23 of those people are right here in Olentangy. So, or they could be employed but not as a media specialist. So I did do a very informal survey of just the Central Ohio group of which I'm a part, and I believe Olentangy and Upper Arlington, of the 24 schools that responded, were the only districts in Central Ohio that had a licensed media specialist in every building.
That's what I would kind of think.
Yes, but Upper Arlington has what, 7 buildings?
Right,
8 buildings?
yeah.
So it's a
Exactly.
pretty-
That,
It's a
yeah.
pretty big
Exactly.
Two middle schools, one high school.
1 high school and 5 elementary.
Yeah.
So I do think it's also important to note that Olentangy not only has media specialists, but we also, our music directors are degreed, and have their
Yeah.
certifications, and we do employ people that have the highest certifications.
Yes, and those aides and volunteers are also very valued, and so we do appreciate all the work, but we do enjoy the instruction and using that preparation that we all had before getting our position. So.
Yep.
I have one more question for you. So is it, I'm going to assume that the media specialists are the ones that are training the kids on, and I'm not going to remember the program, but it's how you, when you're referencing your materials, it drops it in, like it.
Noodle-bib, citations,
What is it
noodle,
called?
noodle tools or noodle-bib?
Yes.
Yes.
So I think you should offer a class to parents.
Okay.
When I tried to assist my son with, I think he might have it now, but there was a year that was not pretty. But I have a
Okay.
high schooler, so she helped. But I'm sure during curriculum night, I would scoot into that and take it
Absolutely.
myself.
We can look into that. Absolutely.
Okay.
I'll write it down.
Well, anybody else have any questions?
Very helpful resource.
It is. I wish it would have been in place when I
Right.
went through school. But no. Anybody
Great.
else?
no,
Thank you.
fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Okay, moving on to the president's report. I thought I would update you on, since we last met as a board on March 15th, we all enjoyed spring break, and hopefully everybody is rested and rejuvenated. Since coming back, I attended the diversity committee. They met on April 4th, and they had 150 participants that registered for that. It was a great venue. Jacqueline Powers, our diversity head, ran it very well. She broke us up into small groups, and then within the small groups, we broke up into even smaller groups, tried to identify some of the core issues, and then brainstorm potential solutions that we could make recommendations to the superintendent. So I thought it was a great night. I know that they're reconvening on April 30th, and I know they're addressing supporting military families. Then on April 5th, Mr. Bartz and I were at the policy meeting, and we edited and went through the revisions that will be presented in maybe the next meeting or May with
next.
Mr. Fetty. Is it next meeting?
First
The first
reading
reading?
is next meeting.
That real lengthy presentation we always have. And then on the 9th, myself and Mr. King attended the Finance and Audit Committee, which I had the pleasure of attending because Mr. O'Brien was out of town, and so we can only have 2 board members. So it was really, really helpful. I am ashamed to say I had not attended in the past, and with the upcoming reading of the 5-year forecast, it was wonderful, and we went through it very slowly, picked it apart, and Mrs. Hatfield did a great job. Then on the 10th, this is just trivia. I have recently taken a position with the Delaware County Foundation, and I am their director of finance. So I reversed roles, and I played Emily, and I had to answer to the executive committee, and it's much better being on our side than their side. So I have a heightened appreciation for what you, Mr. Rafe, and our district leadership people, do when they make a presentation, because you're really focusing on potential questions and how you would answer those. It's a little nerve-wracking. So spring is our busiest time. Right now we're in contract negotiations. All spring sports have commenced and the kids are competing. All of our high school drama departments are doing their spring musical in the next few weeks. The choirs, the bands, they're all doing their spring performances, and before you know it, we will have senior awards, and graduation. So that's all I have for tonight. Mr. Rafe, your superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And welcome everyone. Welcome all our guests. I know we have a large number of guests here tonight as part of the future Berlin High School staff, so welcome. We also have Mrs. Simpson in the audience.
Hi,
She
just
taught
wait.
for the Olentangy local schools for 73 years.
No.
It only seemed that way. Since we started talking about Berlin a little bit, I will start off with, I think, a good thing that Mr. Spinner is putting in up there with his One Bear team. This is a group of students and staff members that are coming together to address issues around the culture and expectations in the school. And he's got a little acronym there for BEARS: be accountable, earn respect, always be nice, reach out to others, and show your pride. So I think it's a good start to kicking off what's going to be an excellent school culture. So thank you for doing that to our One Bear team. As Mrs. Patrick mentioned, there are 3 musicals coming up. There's the dates at April 19th at Orange is Heather's the Musical. OHS is April 20th through 22nd at As You Like It. And Liberty is doing State Fair. And again, our theater departments just do an outstanding job of producing those shows. So I highly encourage everyone in the community to attend. Next 3 slides include a number of names. As you know, every spring we do the signing days for students going to Division III colleges, some Division II colleges, all of the ones that aren't part of the formal national letter of intent signing day through the NCAA. So it's just great to see so many of our student athletes. So there we have the list of Olentangy students, quick picture. Congratulations to those students. And then the LHS students, again, another long list. And it's just across the board. It just speaks to the quality of our athletic programs. And then finally, Orange High School and their student athletes. So it's just a great opportunity to highlight their accomplishments and wish them well in their next athletic endeavor and academic endeavors. So 2 of the schools, Orange and Liberty, are hosting military signing days. So we have, just as an example, I know at Orange High School, there are 16 current members of the senior class who are either enlisting as active duty military or going to one of our service academies or doing an ROTC scholarship or maybe going to the National Guard or that route. But 16 is a big number.
That is.
I'm not sure the number at Liberty, but obviously, I've got two kids active duty Army, so this is something I'm certainly very proud of, and we're going to continue to have our schools apply. Orange has met the criteria to be named a Purple Heart school, so they'll be earning that distinction here very soon. So congratulations to those students and their families. Just one discussion item on the agenda. Mr. DiTilio is going to come up here and give you an overview of our middle school and high school social studies resource adoption. And as you know, as our action items, there are quite a few large items there as part of that resource adoption, something that we've had budgeted. We haven't adopted social studies resources in close to 10 years. So there's a contract to approve for our district photo services. We did put that out to bid. We received 6, thank you, bids on our district photo services. We are recommending continuing to use HR Imaging. They've been with us for a long time as our photo partners. So happy to see that continuing. As you know, there's a large paving action item, and it's being awarded to Heiberger Paving. So that's again part of our capital improvement plans, along with the track resurfacing at Orange High School and Orange Middle School. I'm sorry, the track resurfacing at Shanahan Middle School, and then the relocation of the tennis courts at Orange High School, Orange Middle School, which will provide much needed additional parking at Orange High School. And then just finalizing the next round of important dates coming up. Our next business meeting is April 26th. And then if you have a chance this Sunday at Orange High School, we have the Spring Arts Festival. at Olentangy High School on Sunday, April 29th, and then at Liberty High School Sunday, May 6th. It's a great day to see the accomplishments of our students in the visual arts programs.
So we're at Orange for our next meeting?
Yeah, yes. Next meeting is Orange because we're doing the community recognition nights.
Thank you.
Oh, it's at Orange.
Yeah, it's at Orange this year.
It's
Sorry.
also senior night, so I may be in around that.
Well, you go right ahead. That's highly important.
Kevin, you have 3 other kids.
Candy's going to go through this again.
I'm kidding.
Quick question for you.
Yeah.
On the tennis court resurfacing for Orange, does the cost include aren't we demolishing the other courts and making parking there, or is that going to be a separate contract?
I had
That's
OHS.
included in the paving.
I had
contract,
OHS.
which are also-
Okay.
He did say Orange, right?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rafe. Mrs. Hatfield, the treasurer's report,
But that's
please.
at Orange High School.
Ma'am. So I wanted to give you an update on the bond refunding that we have been working on. We were, to reiterate for the audience, we were refunding our 2010 BABS bonds because the residual payments that was part of the federal program with that to offset the interest cost has been reduced by the feds. And so we moved forward with refunding those bonds so that we could restructure them and save on the interest costs. We are scheduled to close on that refunding on Monday or Tuesday. And so at this point, we are looking at a net present value savings of just over $600,000 or 3.4% on that issue, which is in addition to protecting the district against the loss of the subsidy payments that go with that bond, with the BABS bond. So landing in a really good place with that restructuring, with that refunding. As Mrs. Patrick mentioned, we had our Finance and Audit Committee meeting to review the May 5-year forecast update. We also had a meeting with a smaller subcommittee of that group to discuss the building and department budgets. And so we've reviewed that information with them to walk through the details that roll up and compound into the 5-year forecast, and then had our meeting as a group as a whole to talk about the forecast. Overall, very positive meetings. No material changes came out of those meetings, and so we're going back through the documents just to make sure that we clean up any grammatical issues or formatting issues, and we will have our first read for that on the 26th. With that, we have 3 items on the agenda this evening. We have our approval of the March 2018 financials. Part of what I wanted to iterate to the board and to the audience about that is the dollar differential that you'll see in line 1.10, or the general property tax that's on the financials. There is a $9.2 million variance there to the good. And the reason why I wanted to make sure that we spoke about that in some detail is just to let you know large variance is due to the collection of 2017 real estate taxes. So the federal government changed the tax implications of taking the deduction of taxes paid.
So they paid them ahead of time.
Right. So what happened there, it was to benefit the taxpayers, the individual, to pay their taxes in full in December of 2017 so that they could claim all of that on their tax return rather than be capped at a $10,000 limit.
Did it.
And so it caused a almost 5% swing in the amount of collections that we received or saw for our first half collections. And so that's driving the largest part of that $9 million positive. But what we are going to see is that 5% that we've gained will reduce fiscal year
Next
19.
year.
So it's just creating a timing variance for us. And so we wanted to point that out and kind of have that conversation ahead of the 5-year forecast to let folks kind of think about that and answer any questions you might have. Other than that, we are moving forward on target as expected for fiscal year 18 and where we thought we would be as of March. The minutes, of course, are more of a procedural, just accepting the minutes from our prior meetings. For donations, we have several donations we would like to recognize from our community. Of course, we're always appreciative of donations for in-kind services, meaning hours that they serve in the community or in the classroom, so we appreciate those. And at this time, we'll recognize that we have donation of $4,998 for the purchase of Chromebooks from the Freedom Trail PTO to Freedom Trail Elementary, a $500 donation from Mr. and Mrs. Farber to Berkshire Middle for DC Scholarship Fund, a $1,000 donation from Mr. Bastian from Catapult for Olentangy High School's art department in the form of a printer, and roughly $5,400 donation from Liberty Athletic Boosters to Olentangy Schools for a Liberty Assistant Lacrosse coach and Assistant Boys Track coach supplemental contracts. So we thank all of our donors for their support of the district, and we look forward to future community support. So thank you very much to those individuals and groups. Are there any questions about anything that we have on the agenda?
Thank you, Mrs. Hatfield. Do we have any public participation for general comments?
No, we do not. Thank you.
All right, well, next up is Vince DiTilio, and he is our secondary curriculum director. Welcome, Vince.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you for coming.
No problem. Just wait for my slides to load up there. But thanks again for having me tonight. It's always great to get and come to address the board. And just wanted to share two quick things with you tonight. One is an overview of the process we use when we go and look at resources, just so you understand. It's changed a bit, I think, over the last few years of how we approach that based off the types of resources we're looking at now. And then also propose a few purchases that Mark mentioned earlier, Mr. Rafe, about for social studies. So the first thing I think I'd like you to understand is that prior to any resources, kind of the discussion happening with teachers, as a curriculum department, we are having these discussions a lot about the needs that teachers have. As we're out in the building, as we're visiting classrooms and doing professional development, we do get a lot of requests for items, and we always try to sift through those. We often go back to, we have a 5-year resource plan that we periodically go back and revise, so we know which courses, which subject areas are in need or sort of up for adoption. It's never set in stone, it always adjusts, but so we kind of approach a year knowing that we're going to look at secondary social studies. The first thing that we do and we want to make sure of is that we truly identify the needs that teachers have, and that starts with a survey that I create in terms of seeing what teachers currently have in their classroom, because as we've grown, that's been one challenge. People purchase different things, different versions of things are out there. So seeing what people have, and then also seeing to what extent they're using them, and if there's additional needs they have. So prior to getting any resources in hand, we have a sense of what are the priorities. And that's an important point, because at this point, we are not approaching these adoptions saying we're going to purchase a book for every class, or we're going to buy everybody something new. So we really try to identify which courses and which formats that teachers want in their classroom. From there, I think we often go back in and look at the variety of resources. I mean, today there's a lot out there, lots and lots of print resources still, but also, numerous digital platforms, subscription services, some free things teachers are using. We just try to make sure that we know what's out there, essentially. From there, we kind of move into our second step, and this is a bit of a change where, as a curriculum department, we try to evaluate a lot of the resources through our own work before we put some options in front of teachers. I think in the past, we would just say, well, what do you want to look at? Now we're really trying to do some of that work up front for them to make sure that what we give as an option actually meets the needs that were identified. And one of the ways to start with that is alignment to standards. Every book says it's aligned to the standards, every resource does, but with this social studies adoption, it's nice because this is what I taught, so I can actually go in and really determine whether or not it aligns with the standards. And a few things just immediately went off the table because they didn't align with the standards. The second one is to seek external validation, and we use, it's actually not running anymore, I don't believe, but there was a great resource called Spot On through Ohio State that reviewed digital resources and resources. It had a system for reviewing these things, and I And unfortunately, I don't think it's existing anymore, but in the past, we've used that as a great resource. There's a couple other external sites that review resources and sort of provide guidance for districts. We like to use those. We also call other districts a lot and say, hey, what are you using? How do your teachers like it? Is it beneficial? And then obviously, we're just doing a lot of our own research and reading here in the curriculum department. The third point, and I think this is an important one right now, is to verify that there's no racial or cultural bias within the text. I mean, I think we've done that in the past. I think we've trying to change the way we've done that. We have Jackie Powers now in our department, who is just such an amazing resource when it comes to, I learn stuff every time talking to her about this stuff. And she's really guided that with me of how we look at text to assure that they are equitable, that students can see themselves in a text. And we've also set up with all of the purchases you'll see tonight, either in person or phone calls with the publishers and asking them some questions about how they assure that for their resource. And one in particular, Discovery Tech Books, who we use for the elementary science program also, they provided us with a full series of blog posts that they do on a regular basis about diversity and equity. McGraw-Hill sort of showed us the way that they edit their text. So I think that was nice to sort of ask them how they go about assuring that, but then also on top of that, we're looking at those resources through the eyes of, with the guidance of Jackie. And one thing to say with that is there's no perfect resource, but I think more of what's out there is there's just gaps in some of them, and those are gaps that we have to fill for teachers with other things. We didn't notice any glaring missteps, but there were things that were like, we could probably, there's an opportunity to do something in the classroom there. So I'd say that's more of what we're noticing when we look at those books in terms of that lens. The third one is to select a few resources. This is important. Select a few quality resources for teachers to review. In the past, again, we've done district-wide pilots. It just never goes anywhere. So what I've done is really try to enlist people who are good at this, who are some of our best teachers, to buy in and to really dive in and use the resource and give us feedback. And what I do is I provide them with professional development up front on the resource, and then I make clear the expectations that you are to use this with students. And that's even more key when we're looking at digital resources. It's no longer put the textbook in front of them, let them leaf through the textbook. You have to create student accounts. You have to get students in to see how it works. Once we've utilized those, I sort of jumped ahead to the slide there. Once we start to utilize those resources, that's really where we can move into that gathering the feedback piece. And with the teachers that I have identified, I require more detailed feedback from them. So we have another survey form that's based off the state rubric for resource adoption that includes a lot of the things I mentioned before, and they have to complete that and provide feedback. A lot of times I have conversations with them also. And then finally, each department head has to also talk to the rest of the department who's maybe just looked at these things in passing and make a recommendation to me. From there, we kind of go back, sift through it, and come to you tonight with a proposal. So that's sort of the process. The three purchases that were, it's really four purchases, I guess. Two are for McGraw-Hill, so three different publishers. But the first one I'm really excited about. I think that Discovery Tech Books, you approved the science version of these for elementary. This is a resource that we found through Spot On that had the highest rating on their website. I never knew it existed. They're a fantastic company to work with. It's a fully digital textbook that sort of works behind United Streaming, which is a video streaming service we all already use in the district. They have something called Board Builder on there, which basically allows you to design your own textbook. Everything is editable, flexible. You can actually record your own audio over videos. Kids can do that. They can edit the video. It's just really dynamic. I think the big piece of it is that it's also designed around a pedagogy for inquiry. So a lot of the things we're trying to do with teachers in the classroom, the resource is set up to really drive student inquiry. And you don't see a lot of that, honestly, where the resources actually has pedagogy behind it. It's pretty rare in my sense of looking at things. And then the last part, which I think is the best part about it, is they add content. Like Newsella, we've talked about a purchase before. They add content without additional cost. And I think that's honestly where the big publishers, we're starting to lose them. It's that you have to purchase the new edition or something like that. So I think, in my vision, I think this kind of resource is where we're going to be moving more often. There's just not as many of them out there. And so we're purchasing a 6-year license, proposing a 6-year license for every middle school student in social studies. So at high school, it's a bit different still. I think we're still, when we look at the needs and the wants of teachers, there's still that desire to have that textbook in print. And with non-AP courses, we've sort of set the precedent that we will purchase class sets of those print, and then we'll have digital subscriptions for all our students. With AP, we still said that we will purchase every student a book if that's what teachers desire. Due to the funds and both the needs, we're actually not adopting all the courses, like I said. So from McGraw-Hill, we're adopting a text, we're proposing an adoption of U.S. history, world history, and U.S. government. I really like this series, and so did teachers. The digital side of it is much more powerful than the other things we looked at. It looks a lot like Schoology, Facebook, kind of esque. It allows them some flexibility in designing, cutting and pasting the materials together. But we really liked also the document analysis, primary source analysis, resources they have. It aligns well with the sort of teaching that we're doing. Also from McGraw-Hill, we're looking at their AP U.S. Government book. AP U.S. Government was one of the needs we had. Just the books were sort of falling apart. Government is going through the test is being rewritten for U.S. Government and AP. So we're actually going to purchase the resources now, but they're going to get the newest edition of them, of the print, in late fall. But we're going to have digital access when the school year starts. So that's a big deal for AP teachers. As the tests change, they need a resource that aligns to that. The final one, AP US History. This is not from McGraw-Hill. This is from Cengage Publishing. This is a really classic AP US History textbook, but I really liked the digital side of it also. In meeting with this publisher, they have a lot of data analysis tools where you can track students' progress. This one actually integrates seamlessly with Schoology, which is rare to find. We ask publishers all the time, hey, how does this work in Schoology? Can it integrate? And this is actually one of the few we found that does, so I'm excited about that. So those are the sort of the process and the 4 purchases that we're proposing, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
I have one. Does anybody else have? You said that the digital versions align with some of the other tools that we have. Mm-hmm. Do they also align with the ability for like readers and Bookshare, or do you not need to utilize Bookshare because we have them digitally, and then we can put an extension on for them to read to you?
Are you referring to the book being read to them, or what? I'm sorry. Yeah, like a read aloud. Yeah, all of the digital platforms have those tools embedded in them now. A lot of them have just different tools that students can use to annotate and save their annotations digitally, which is great. So as a teacher, I can also go in and I can plant questions inside the text that students have to respond to. If you highlight this area and ask me a question, I can respond. They're all fairly interactive now. I think it's unfortunate that they're all on a separate platform. I think that's the Schoology piece. If there was a way, and I believe it's there, it's just the publishers don't want to play that game sometimes, but for have it all integrated in one platform would be beautiful, but they work fairly similar.
Thank you.
Question.
Yeah.
I'm glad you had this sort of on the slide, because I noticed it in the materials before. Your AP US Government, the textbook, American Democracy Now. Mm-hmm. The word now intrigued me. Can you give me some background on what is behind the word now?
I think with American Democracy Now, I think it's, first of all, the update to the AP, because this is an AP book that's been redesigned for the new AP test. And from what I understand, I never taught AP U.S. government, there's just a heavier focus on modern sort of politics, I think, than in the past.
Well, that's what I'm getting to. There seems to be an approach to that. What do you think that might be?
Oh, in terms of like the sales of it, or how they?
Well, no, not. What does now mean? What are they? Yeah. Is the book talking about how we think democracy's changed? What it is? What it should be? What it?
I think how it's. I think
concept behind that.
I'd have to look a bit more into the details and ask the question about that. But I mean, from my impression, I think they're trying to communicate the idea of how it's changed. And up till now, a more current look at democracy, okay. including some of more recent events, I would assume.
Okay.
And the book, it was called Democracy Now, the last edition.
Oh, it was?
But I think it's only the second edition of that book. Oh. So.
Anybody else? Well, thank you for coming and sharing that with us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Vince.
just so Jackie Powers, I know she reviewed
Yeah,
the
that's-
one textbook pretty
Well,
extensively.
we looked at them all. She actually is reading one of them, because that's her. For fun. She was on like page 170. I was like, you had 170 pages of the textbook, so, yeah.
Myself.
Mrs. Hatfield, do we have any public participation regarding our action items?
No, we do not.
Okay, so I would like, Mr. Rafe, would you like
We
to
have a board
present?
action item.
It's your presentation.
Me, what are
That's
we?
you.
Approve the
Oh, for the Facilities Committee.
adding
Thank
names to the
you.
Facilities Committee.
I will take a motion to approve Dan, thank you.
Second?
Mrs. Hatfield?
Mr.
I just have a question for Dave. Did they review the resume, did the
Yes,
facilities?
yes, and they have been introduced at the meeting as well. And just quickly, since you bring that up, Dan Loris is an engineer, Wesley Smith is an engineer and is involved in construction management, and Mr. Yanka is a Finnish consultant with things like paints.
Good.
Yeah, they've been attending the last couple of meetings, just
Good.
waiting for official approval.
And the committee is making the recommendation.
Yes,
Yes,
made
so-
by the Facilities Committee.
Mr. King?
Yes,
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick?
Yes. Mrs. Hatfield, will you please present your treasurer action items?
Yes, please, I would like to present treasurer action items A through C for approval.
Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Okay, wait, I have to catch up for a second. Mr. Bartz?
Yes.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. King?
yes,
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
And Mrs. Patrick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Rafe, would you please present your superintendent action items?
Yes, I'll present superintendent action items A through J. I just want to highlight on A1, our certified employees this year, and welcome all of the new employees for the Berlin staff. Really, I think Todd's done a great job of putting together a diverse team with experience, and you guys are really going to be a part of a unique and very special experience. And some of the people on the list are here in their very first jobs, starting their careers, so congratulations.
I just have a question overall for the hiring of our staff. Where are we? Are we like 75% done, 50% done? How?
Mr. Spinner,
Mr.
always,
Spinner,
he
he's
never
here.
passes up an opportunity to get at that mic. Look at him.
Yeah,
Look
look
at him.
at him.
He's just
Jump, big boy.
Spinner.
Everybody's talking
Only
about it.
because everybody's asking me that question.
I appreciate that. We are, I would say, 97% done. I have some aides to hire, intervention aides, and also some clinic aides. I have 2 English teachers to hire, and then also an assistant principal to hire. However, I've interviewed all of those folks, and we're very, very close. If I could, I don't want to overstep my bounds, may I have those teachers stand up? Is that okay, Mr. Rafe? Is that okay? How about our current Bear staff members? Would you please stand up for a round of applause?
Welcome.
Okay, wow.
So any other questions in regard to the hiring?
Only because everyone was asking me.
The only follow-up to that is, and when the time is right, probably have Mrs. Meyer come in, and to the extent that you're finished your hiring, you've probably created hiring opportunities
Mm-hmm.
Elsewhere.
other schools, and how does that all
Yeah.
balance
What's,
out? What do we-
what's the domino effect?
This is where I sit down. Thank you.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
Excellent exit. Very, very well done.
Todd usually comes in and lets us know at some point.
Right where we are.
Where we're at.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
And
we're
what
right
the
now
goal
in the
is.
season of kind of resignations and postings, and jobs are posted all over the place, and so.
And then if you could provide an update too, they had the diversity virtual call-in for teachers. I don't know if anybody was here. It was on the 11th. They did a diversity recruitment.
Oh, good.
And so you could virtually call in and interview with people. And it happened all over the nation. My daughter's school district in Las Vegas participated too. So it was a great way to talk to people without having to go anywhere.
Right.
So if someone could provide us with an
Yep.
update on that, too.
Probably not at the 26th, just because we have a lot of.
Oh, yeah, you have a lot of
When the
people.
timing's right. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So I'll present superintendent action items A through J.
So moved.
A second.
Mrs. Hatfield?
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. Bartz,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes. Now I will take a motion to move to executive session as permitted by Section 121.22 of the Ohio Revised Code to consider the employment or compensation of public employees, and Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22, preparing for conducting or reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other conditions of their employment.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hatfield.
Mrs. Fiesel,
Yes.
Mr. Bartz,
Yes.
Mr. King,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
and Mrs. Patrick.
Yes. Thank you for attending. Our next board meeting will be at Orange High School on April 26th, and we will only return tonight to adjourn. You're welcome to stay. I wouldn't suggest. Hopefully, we'll see you on the 22nd or 26th. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.